Good morning. I'm Serena Stoudemire-Wesley, and I am the policy director. My title changed again. It's changed a couple of times since January for the Oregon Education Investment Board. And I am here representing our Chief Education Officer, Dr. Nancy Golden, who was unable to be here. So as my favorite author would do, I'm going to keep it simple. So I'm going to say, when I think of culturally responsive teaching, it's also teachers accepting how students learn. And so I say, you bring out the best in me when everyone else around could only see the worst in me. When I say you bring out the best in me, I'm talking about bringing out the best in the students that we serve. So when you're teaching as a culturally responsive pedagogy, it's bringing out their best strengths, their best style of learning, and how they're learning. When I say when everyone else around could only see the worst, I'm talking about some of the environments in which our students come from, and we have to take that into accountability when we're teaching our students. So I say welcome, good morning, and enjoy your day.
Gonna make us all sing in here. Thank you. Our next speaker is the Director of Equity and Compliance, Dr. Sente Richards. Just playing. And this person almost needs no introduction, at least in the Portland Public School area. It's all of our inspiration, our leader for Portland Public Schools, Superintendent Carol Smith.
So it's also my pleasure to welcome you here for the 5th annual conference. And my thanks really are going to Karanja for having the dream of bringing this collection of people together. And it started very small and has built and grown every single year. Karanja, thank you for making this your purpose to bring us together to improve culturally responsive practice. I also want to do a call out to Charlene. So Charlene earlier this week won the Equal Opportunity Award from the Urban League and had a fabulous recognition of her leadership in bringing this to fruition here at Roosevelt High School in her time as principal and now going on to lead the Roosevelt Cluster. Please join me in that. And then I just want to thank Philippe and the Roosevelt Rough Riders for hosting us here today, because this has been so exciting what's gone on here at Roosevelt, and really seeing what happens when you have a unified vision on a campus, and where what's going on in the classrooms are all about doing what's right for kids. And it's been remarkable. We've had enrollment grow, we've had achievement grow, we've had graduation rates grow, and just like the entire community feeling a part of that. So Philippe, thank you for hosting us here today, and Rough Riders, and there are a lot of them here in the audience, so thank you for doing that. And I think my final message, I'm just excited that the commitment across our districts, because you've got multiple districts here today and multiple districts who are working together on reducing disparities in service to our kids, and the fact that we come together to share, deepen, and expand our culturally responsive practice in the classroom, because that's how we change the culture of our districts. We also have efforts across our districts to change the rest of the culture of the district. And by that, I mean that our staffs reflect our students, that our budgets and how we budget and allocate resources are differentiated, and that we're intentionally doing that we as districts, as business partners, are looking at our contracting practices. So there are a lot of different parts of us as being a part of a community that demonstrate how we are doing business differently. And you see that going on in all of the districts who are part of the sponsorship here today. And in Portland Public Schools, it's been our work for the last 7 years in a really deep way. So I just want to say thank you to all the teachers who are here today, both sharing and learning from each other, and I wish you a great day.
Our next speaker is Vice President of the Oregon Education Association, Tony Crawford.
Good morning. I'm proud to say that OEA is a sponsor of the 5th Annual Teaching with Purpose Conference. On behalf of the 42,000 members of the Oregon Education Association, I welcome you to this weekend's conference. For those not familiar with OEA, let me share a little background with you. The mission of the Oregon Education Association is to unite the public education profession and advocate for those professionals to ensure quality public education for all students in Oregon. The vision of the Oregon Education Association is to improve the future of all Oregonians through quality public education. Now, OEA also has 8 core values: democracy, collective action, social justice, professionalism, integrity, respect for diversity, collaboration, and lifelong learning. We oftentimes like to ask our members, which value is your favorite? My favorite is social justice, which states, we believe through quality public education, the rights and worth for all individuals are respected and defended. The teachers of Oregon are hungry for transformed schools that teach to the whole student and provide opportunity for every student to find success. We are appalled by the achievement gap and dedicate ourselves to closing the gap through professional practice and addressing the variables that contribute to the gap. OEA has 2 key groups charged with helping to bring equity and social justice to every classroom in the state. Our Ethnic Minority Affairs Council and our Human and Civil Rights Committee are dedicated to this effort, and they work together to bring resources and trainings for educators all across the state. For OEA members in the audience today, I encourage you to visit the OEA webpage to discover our catalog of trainings and resources available for you and your school. You will also discover that if you do not find the training you were looking for, just ask, and we'll design it and we'll bring it to you. We are at your service. I invite everyone to also visit our webpage to check out also our Facebook page for information about OEA's Week of Action this next week. You'll discover a series of activities in all parts of the state promoting our call to deliver the schools Oregon students deserve. For those of you who live in the Portland metro area, I invite you to join us Sunday, October 19th from noon to 3 at Pioneer Courthouse Square, where you will find the Quality Education Festival. OEA members and friends will have booths that are fun, informational, and something for the whole family. Invite you to join us. Mark your calendar, October 19th, noon to 3, Pioneer Courthouse Square, and I do hope to see you there. You know, with this little bit of information of OEA, you can see why we are excited to be a part of this institute and to promote the professional practice to create the leaders we need in the communities all across our state. We commend you for being here. I thank you for allowing me to share a few comments with you this morning. But as I tell my students, you don't get what you want by wishing for it. You get it through hard work. So it's time to roll up our sleeves. Let's get to work. Thank you.
And now we have the treat of Dr. Sente Richards, Director of Equity and Compliance.
Good morning, everybody, and my apologies for coming a little late. About 10 years ago, Reynolds School District underwent a traumatic change in which the majority of Black and Hispanic people changed, in which the people that were there went down to about somewhere around 30%, and Black and Hispanics moved up. At Reynolds, we have about 47% English language minorities. Also, that's not including the English speaking minorities that have moved through as a result of gentrification. Nevertheless, the faculty has remained the same, where there were about 90% white and not a whole lot of minorities. The situation calls for equity. The situation calls for being able to understand culture. The situation calls for non-exclusionary practices where we can understand the cultural differences that our children bring into the district. So, with those things in mind, Reynolds School District has done a lot to reduce the amount of disparity as a result of racial misunderstanding, language difference, and other practices that discriminate against those that are new to the district. To that extent, we have begun to integrate culture and language with content so that students can see themselves in the district. To that extent, we are moving towards integrating more minorities into the district, more bilinguals into the district, more people of color with leadership capacity into the district, so that everybody, not just those who see themselves on TV, not just those who see themselves in their populations, but all students can come to education in a democratic way. I always say that if people don't realize that they have a choice, then they don't have a choice. That goes for both students and faculty. If faculty, whatever color they come from, do not realize that they have different cultural backgrounds that are informed by beliefs and values that may exclude other beliefs and values, then they don't realize that there's a choice to be made to influence yourself first about those biases so that you can make conscious decisions when you think you're being disrespected, when in actuality, it is a cultural difference. It's important that the faculty are aware of the fact that if you exclude the students because you believe that they're being disrespected, then they have no chance whatsoever to learn from you. They have no chance to move ahead like everyone else who has the same skin color as you do. It is important that the people that are here right now are here because they understand that teaching goes beyond curriculum. Teaching goes beyond excluding people because you have different values and belief systems. Even discipline, as we have heard before, is a Greek word which means teaching. I come from the discipline of education. So teaching is, and discipline is an educative experience where relationships can be built, forged, and nurtured. I invite you to embark upon the same journey as Reynolds School District, where we figure out how our values come to play in our administration, in our classrooms, and in the way we treat our students. I invite you to think about ways that you can integrate curriculum with content, with culture, so that the students can actually see themselves in the curriculum, so that the students can realize that they too form the world that we live in, and that they too can go to college because there are people like them who look like them in the classroom, in administration, in leadership. So please embark upon this journey with us. And it's a learning experience. It's not always easy. It's not always immediate gratification. But in the end, with those beliefs and values in mind, we can undergird our students, undergird ourselves, and move towards a more inclusive environment that includes all cultures and all values. Thank you very much.
So as Gwen Sullivan makes her way up here, you know, I'm given a lot of credit because I had the title of leader of this school, but none of that work could be done without partnership, amazing teachers, amazing students, amazing staff and community members. And one of those partners was the Portland Association of Teachers. Very early on, when we started doing transformation work here on the Roosevelt campus, and we wanted to do things differently with our teachers and some of the work that we were doing, the association got on board so that we could move forward with applying for the school improvement grant and really improving our instructional practice. And so I just want you to join me in welcoming Gwen Sullivan to the stage.
Charlene's a little taller than I am. Hello, I'm really excited to be here. I am Gwen Sullivan. I'm the president of Portland Association of Teachers that represents nearly 3,000 professional educators, another almost 1,000 subs in our district, and I am very honored to do so, being that I'm a teacher. And I have kids in our school system, so I see a lot of things firsthand. I am really excited to be here for a variety of reasons. One, I want to acknowledge not just our teachers here in Portland that are here. If you are a teacher, would you please raise your hand or stand or something? I want to acknowledge all of you because you are here to turn things around. And so I want to say thank you for being here. Everyone else in the room, I also want to say thank you for helping educate all of us. Because as teachers, my dad would say to me, teaching is the most selfish profession. And I'd say, what are you talking about, Dad? And he said, because you constantly get to learn. And I think that's important to know as teachers, we are constantly getting to learn, and that's why we're here today. So I do want to acknowledge Karanja, one of our members at PAT, for, yes, for this conference, but for this vision and for this calling that he felt, that he knew, being a practitioner on the ground, that we needed to get some of the tools to make things better for our kids in the hands of teachers. And he saw that, and he saw that vision, and he made that a reality. And this conference has only gotten bigger and bigger and better. So last year I was honored to participate, and let me just give you an idea of some of the things that I learned. I think first and foremost, you know, you learn things in a variety of different ways. And some things awaken when I walk into a classroom setting or I work with students. The things that I learned in this conference will bubble up then. But one of the things that I learned last year as well, which was extremely important, is something that I keep with me every day. And I didn't know it until I was actually putting my thoughts together. Is last year we had this amazing speaker, Dr. Joy DeGraw, and she talked about how kids learn and what motivates kids. And she talked about how you put, if the kids turn in their homework, they get a gold star, right? They have the star chart. And that motivates kids, except for not all kids. And it doesn't always motivate kids for a long period of time. That's kind of a Eurocentric way to look at teaching, is the star chart. But instead, there is culture that really examines what's more important and what motivates our kids. It's about a relationship. So instead of putting the star on the chart, when your kids come in to turn in their homework, to acknowledge them and to look them in the eye and say, thank you for turning in your homework. I'm proud of you. You did a good job. That is more meaningful to get kids motivated to do the work. That it's about a relationship with adults, with our kids, and that they get to know them. So when they don't turn in their homework, you can also have that conversation, which is, what's going on? Is everything okay? Do you need some help? And immediately, building those relationships, you're able to turn things around. So I learned some of those things. I knew some of those things, but she put it together for me. And she also talked about how when she would go to, she brought up Avatar, for those of you that were here last year, those of you that weren't. She brought up the movie Avatar. Remember the blue people? But she talked about in the movie how they talk about almost a sixth sense, which is, I see you. And she talked about how that related to African folklore and African history, that it is something intrinsic in the community and the communities of color that makes a connection. So she gave the example of going into a Safeway in Hawthorne area. And she walks in there and she says, I recognize I'm probably going to be the only black person, but that's all right. I know where I'm going. And she walks in there doing her shopping, and all of a sudden she sees another black person. And what does she do? What does he do? They nod. And what she taught me at that moment was the I see you, right? That it's connected to culture and our kids. In order to connect with our kids, we need to see them. And we need to connect with them. So I learned some things last year that stay with me. And I know people think I'm crazy sometimes because I'll be walking and I'll nod at people and they think, what are you talking about, lady? But I know where I am that I recognize people in certain environments where they are maybe the only person that looks like them. So I hope that with this conference, there are many exciting things I'm excited about for the breakout sessions. Things like the inclusive equity education. I'm really looking forward to seeing what that's all about. I mean, I think part of it is a lot of us as educators, we struggle with, there are these state and federal mandates that what does that look like when we're given canned curriculum or, teaching to a test? What does that look like when we're looking at making things culturally relevant? So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the literature to teach civil rights movement. This summer, I read the new Jim Crow, which I think needs to be one of the books that we buy for every single high school student, middle school student, that we start looking at what's really happening in our society. I also look forward to some of the communication classroom skills, and I think that that's really important, given, as others have mentioned, about the disparities in discipline. You may have read in Portland about our special ed students, and it's something that our association, our teachers have long been advocating for our students, that we need more resources for our special education teachers. We need more resources. We need counselors. We need mental health providers. And we need specialized training to work with our most fragile kids. And so we know this, and we're inspired to get there. And we're hoping that as we turn this culture around, that we work together to start, one, making sure that there's proper funding for education, and that we actually don't do things in isolation, that we come together and we work together, because when this group of people works together, we can change anything. So thank you very, very much for being here. I knew it was going to be a good day because my alarm woke me up, and what song was on? It was CNC Music Factory. Everybody dance now. So I'm like, all right, let's go. Anyway, enjoy the conference today. Thank you.
When you should have started singing. Thank you for your comments. We will now have Project Manager, Office of Mayor Charlie Hales, Mr. Chad Stover, come up and give a few comments.
Good morning. My name is Chad Stover. I'm a project manager on the mayor's staff, formerly International Affairs Policy Advisor, and now I'm working in neighborhood involvement, public safety, and equity and human rights. So I can have a three-pronged job description that always keeps me busy. I'm very honored to be here this morning, and I also want to say thank you to Karanja and to Charlene and to Philippe and to Roosevelt High School for hosting this morning. Mayor, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it, but he's here in heart and spirit, and he sent me with a letter that I would like to read to you. Welcome. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the City of Portland for the 5th Annual Teaching with Purpose Conference at Roosevelt High School. I hope that our guests, in addition to exploring new ways to be successful as a community, will also take some time to explore the Portland metropolitan region. As Portlanders, we are extremely proud of what our city has to offer both residents and visitors. It is a place of outstanding natural beauty, fascinating and unique culture, a national destination for NorthWest-inspired culinary experiences, and strong commercial activities accessible by our nationally renowned transportation system. Portland is consistently ranked as one of the most sustainable and livable cities in the United States. We are fortunate to have a wonderful quality of life that includes abundant green spaces, nearby mountains and rivers, and cultural offerings, including a world-class symphony and museum, a farm-fresh food movement, outstanding wineries, and of course, our own Portland Thorns and Portland Timbers, professional women's and men's soccer clubs, respectively. Our Saturday market, which is open most of the year, and on Sundays too, is a showcase for local artisans and handcrafted goods. Farmers markets featuring the freshest produce can be found throughout the metropolitan area. Portland has become a city that embraces diverse populations, which continuously enrich the communities and neighborhoods that we live in. No matter what activities you choose to pursue during your stay, you'll find the people of Portland ready to help make your visit enjoyable as possible. Best wishes to all of you for a successful conference and wonderful visit to our fine city. Sincerely, Charlie Hales, Mayor of Portland. Thank you very much.
Okay, I know you've been sitting for a while. Stand up. I've been trying to move you through the program quickly, but I can tell you might need to find 2 people and say, I'm glad to see you. Go ahead, find 2 people. I'm glad to see you. All right, so as you take your seats, how many of you did the little head nod with the little chin up? How many of you did the, okay. So now I have the pleasure of inviting to the stage our host, the visionary, the leader, the reason why we're all here, Dr. Karanja Cruz. Come on to the stage, please.
Good morning. That was weak. Good morning. Turn it out. Try that one more time. Good morning. I need some more energy in here. Good morning. Come on now. One more time, and the last time. I want it from the belly. Okay? One more time. Good morning. All right. First of all, I want to thank you guys again. We did it again. Give yourself a hand. So the Teaching with Purpose is a reminder for us all. It's a reminder of 3 questions. 3. Who are you? What is your intent? And what is your purpose? Who are you? What is your intent? And what is your purpose? The Teaching with Purpose is a place to convene, to be reminded of that purpose. To be reminded that we are here to teach, to empower. This is the place to do a check-in, to check within, to check to see what type of energy and vibration that you are operating in. The Teaching with Purpose is based around 3 key principles. And the key principles are culturally relevant teaching and practice, building relationships, and having high expectations for your students. It's a place to get to know yourself, to know who you are, and again, to know your intentions. To develop the right relationships with your staff, with your students, and with your parents. Get to know them with the intent to love.
Let your heart.
Our teaching, our administration, our political methods are becoming obsolete because we are functioning through routine and repetition and not through pure intent to empower. To empower your staff, to empower your students, again, and to empower your parents. We are living in a new time, in a new age, and we must shift with the climate. The times we are faced with, there's more prisons being built than schools. The media is flooded with airways of negativity. It's easier to find fast food and processed food than organics, fruits, and vegetables. 92% of the songs on the radio is about sex, violence, and ego. There's no more hide and seek. There's kids playing video games all day. The average person watches 5 hours of television. We are sold and being brainwashed through television and through radio. Corporations are putting pressures on us to buy, to spin, and to fit in, and to fit in. After hundreds of years of racism, race is still an issue. Media is shaping the expectations through the social construct of how we view black and brown and people of color. We are still identifying ourselves according to the social construct that we are placed in. So when you think about the idea of culturally relevant or responsive practice, it is a vast and a deep study, but yet it's so simple. Culturally relevant practice is discovering your own culture. Who are you? You're not just white. You're not just black. You're not just Asian. What ethnic group are you from? Are you Scotland? Are you from Europe? Are you France? Are you from France? Who are you? What is your ethnic background? You need to know who you are. Don't just identify yourself as the social construct as white. Through the social construct, we have these names and labels, but yet we forget that we are human beings. We forget that we are human beings. We move in the act of human doings and produce human ruins. So what is the solution in the midst of this new corruption and this information age? We must find that love within yourself. Find the love and your intent to spread that love through your staff and through your students. Many of you and many of us have some challenging students right now. Raise your hand if you have some challenging students right now. You know what? They're screaming for love. They're screaming for your intent for them, for you to love them. Develop that relationship with them. Kids, students are not stupid. They know when you don't like them. They know when your energy is not right. So if they discern that and you give off that energy, of course they're gonna give you some challenge. Of course they're gonna give you some pushback. So change, and first of all, go within. Recognize what type of energy and vibration you're operating in and change it. And make your intent to love and to empower. Some of us and some of you, your energy is negative. You don't take the time to develop those relationships and your expectations is low. Children have that strong discernment and they know. So being culturally responsive is being conscious of ourselves and the ills of this world and being intentional with your approach. Providing that proper content, that culturally specific, that they can identify with, but the number one intent is to empower them. Look at your neighbor and say, empower. That was weak. Look at them in the eye and say, empower. Love is the most powerful weapon that we have. Shield them with your intentional love. The teaching with purpose is to remind you of that purpose to love. And the theme song of this conference is learning, growing, and changing. So what I want us to do right now, if we can have the logo pop back on the screen. And I want you guys to vibe on this song. Please turn it up a little bit. And if you look at the logo, it's a teacher holding up two students, just like this. What I want you to do is I want you to all stand right now. And I want you to put your hands up like this with the intent and have that challenging student in your mind right now. That student that you don't like. Change the vibration and the energy that you have, and I want you to think about empowering them. And listen to the lyrics of the song. Now, I want you to go find two people, and I want you to tell them what your purpose is. Keep the music playing, find two people and look them in the eye and tell them what your purpose is. When I say I go, I want you to say I may. I go. I go. When I say I go, you say I may. I go. All right. So if you can have a seat at this moment. So, at this particular time, we're going to transition to, we have our Deputy State Superintendent that's going to speak and say some words. And right after that, we're going to have a town hall session talking about activating Senate Bill 103. But I know some of you guys are not really into politics. And what we have right now going on in the gym is we have a youth symposium. This is currently what's going on in the gym right now that you missed. All right, so high energy, high engagement is part of culturally relevant practice.
We also have on the screen behind me, you've seen many sponsors who support this particular event, and we wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor. And we want to give special thanks to our volunteers. And they may not all be in the room, but I'm going to call your name. I'm going to ask you to stand if you're still present. I want to thank Steve Gross from Henry V. Event Services, Sherry Carricker, Matsia Sioso, and forgive me if I butcher your name, I apologize. Aaron Houlihan from Lewis and Clark, volunteers Tyler West, Tam Tav, Trina Sarton, Basima Rushton, Xavier Friday, Cheryl Mays, Marsha Carson, and Tammy Tarver. Can we give it up for volunteers? You cannot pull off something of this magnitude without the help of volunteers, and we just thank you for your continued support. So now I have the privilege of introducing Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction for the state of Oregon, Rob Saxton. A brief bio, and it's interesting what you can find on Wikipedia. Saxton started his career in education as a teacher and football coach in Big Spring, Texas. He returned to his home state after accepting a job teaching in Albany, Oregon. Rob's first administrative position was at West Albany High School. He later held school administrative posts in nearby districts of McMinnville, Oregon, and Sherwood, Oregon. Following this, he took the post as leader of the Tigard-Tualatin schools with around 13,000 students. That district has shown marked improvement under Saxton's tenure. One area of particular focus for Saxton was closing the gap between minority students and the statewide averages in reading and mathematics. Colleagues also note his keen focus on early literacy and reducing inappropriate special education classifications. He acted as superintendent at Tigard-Tualatin for 7 years before being appointed to the statewide office. Let's give it up for our deputy superintendent.
Good morning. Oh, yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think this is like the first time I've ever gotten up to speak where like half the room emptied out before you know it. Hey, Rob's about to speak. Out. So, but here I am. It's good to be here. It was really good to be invited back to speak this year. Actually, I was here in a panel last year and I spoke a little bit and I got a tiny bit excited about Senate Bill 103 and I doomed my fate to be invited back to speak again this year. So here I am, and I'm actually very honored to be invited back to speak. If you speak one time and then you get invited back, that's a good thing. So I just have to say, Serena, I did not know that you could do that. That was beautiful. Thank you for busting that out this morning. That was awesome. Let's hear it for Serena, who laid one down. And then, you know, Gwen talked about Everybody Dance Now, and some people at my table challenged me to give a rendition of Everybody Dance Now, so I won't do it. But you have no idea how badly I really want to. So, but I won't do it today. Are we being videotaped? Oh, I might be able to get away with it. There's no video. So I do especially want to thank Karanja crew for the day today, and just I know it's going to be a fabulous day, and it's an honor, truly an honor to be here on this topic on this day. Karanja, thank you for all of your great work wherever you are. Thank you. So, we have an issue here in the state. It's an issue that we're together today to work and address. And that issue is that we have a gap that exists between students. And it's one that is predictable on race. And you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it an achievement gap. You can call it an expectations gap. You can call it an opportunity gap, disproportionate discipline, disproportionate incarceration, or anything else that you want to call it. But the bottom line is we have a gap in our state. It is absolutely irrefutable. And that gap exists between white students and students of color. And the likelihood that they will succeed in our school system, the likelihood that they will succeed in life. And that is not acceptable. And we are here today for one purpose, and that's to do work to fix that gap. And that gap is fixable. We know it's fixable. We also know that that outcome is completely not acceptable. We all know that our students of color have the same intelligence, the same promise, and capacity for success that any other group has. And so if they're not achieving at the same level or higher, it can only mean one thing, that we as a system are failing our students. And none of us got into this work to fail our students. We got into this work to help them to be a success, and we need to take on that work here in the state of Oregon. So last year when I was here, the reason I got a little agitated was because I was frustrated with the lack of success and the lack of direction that I felt that we had on this issue. And it was evidenced by the fact that we have been able in the state of Oregon to actually pass legislation, things in statute, law, and ignore them over time and just continue on doing whatever it is that we've been doing. And one of those examples is Senate Bill 103. And Senate Bill 103 was passed in the 90s. And last year was the first time that I really remember people saying, what is the deal here? We have this bill that's passed and we pretty much just ignore it. And it is the Multicultural Education Act. And I made a commitment here last year that that was not going to continue to happen, that we could not continue to ignore that Senate bill, and in fact, that we would dust it off, shine it up, and that we would get to work on it. We were able to secure some funding out of the 2013 session that allowed us to put a little more oomph behind that particular bill. And in fact, part of that work is this convening today. And we have brought together a group, thanks to Karanja and to others, that's now underway. And it's an advisory group that was put together last December and is about to kick off monthly workshops featuring Dr. Geneva Gay. And it starts in November and it continues on through the end of the school year. And that group is doing other significant and important work around making sure that we deliver on Senate Bill 103 and that we begin to use that as a mechanism by which we close gaps. Something else that's been around for a while, Senate Bill 755, the Minority Educator Act. In the state of Oregon, 91.7% of our teachers are white. 39% of our students are students of color. It is not acceptable for us to have that disparity between those two percentages, and we need to make sure that we get educators in front of our students who look like, who are examples of, who understand, who are able to deliver in a better and different way than we are currently. Senate Bill 755 is now supported by an equity advisory group. They completed a report recently, July 1st as a matter of fact, on the status of educators of color in Oregon and the reporting on tracking on our efforts to recruit and retain. And by the way, our goal was that we would increase the percentage of educators of color who were hired in the state by 10%. I sat in my office yesterday and had a report on this very issue. Not because we were doing this today, but because it was time for a report. And I am pleased to tell you that we believe for teachers, we are on track to increase by 10% over the 2-year time period that we've identified. I'm very happy about that, and I just want to thank some of the people on the equity team for the work that they're doing that, particularly Dr. Markeisha Smith. Markeisha. We are well beyond that goal for administrators. We're within two more administrators of color in the state need to be hired into the state to meet our 10% goal over 2 years. We also had another thing that has been placed on the shelf and not paid any attention to, the Oregon Indian Education Plan, a plan that was put together in the early 2000s, that when it was put together was a lot like some district curricula, if you know what I mean, was put on a shelf and we didn't really do very much with it. That has ended. We now have a group together. It's an advisory group that's working on this issue. It's made up of Oregon tribe members, other Native Americans, district membership from teachers and administrators in districts, and they'll be revising that plan. They're together now. We'll be bringing that plan in this winter, and then we'll begin to deliver on it. And I want to thank April Campbell, the Oregon Indian Education Specialist, who's part of our equity team at the department, who's leading that work. So a lot of this has been moving along, and it's been really supported by the equity team, and I'm going to keep talking about these people because of the fabulous job they're doing at our department. In the department, we have what we call the Office of Learning, and within the Office of Learning, we have our equity team. I would like you all, if you're on the equity team, would you stand up for just a second? And they're going to be on a panel up here with me in just a minute, but these people are doing incredible work. In the 2013 session, we had strategic initiatives, and we said we need to make sure that some of these strategic initiatives focus where they should. And I'm just going to read a list here. Every one of these has incredible, deep work that's going on, and many of you are engaged in that work. It's part of why you're here today. I'll try not, sometimes I started to read this, I was trying to do this in my head, and every time I'd read one of these, I'd want to get into the details and get excited about what it is doing for students in the state of Oregon, and it's really good stuff, but here they are. The African American Student Grant, the Culturally Responsive Pedagogy and Practices Grant, the Dual Language Grant that says that bilingualism is an asset. That was a little bit of excited for me, so I couldn't help but say that one. The English Language Proficiency Grant, the American Indian Alaska Native Culturally Responsive Teaching, Learning, and Pedagogy Grant, and all 9 tribes in the state of Oregon now have partnerships with districts to create curricula that's relevant and true about Native American history in the state of Oregon. I was going to avoid that too. The Pipeline Models Grant, teacher recruitment, and the teacher retention grants. All of that work is fabulous work. And again, the Equity Division at the department is leading that work in partnership with all of you who are really making a difference with those things for students. So when I look at that and I read that list and I think about the bills that have been passed previously, and I think about what it is that we're really trying to do here in the state of Oregon, those things to me feel like rocks, big rocks, in a foundation that we're trying to build. And we're laying those rocks down on that foundation, and when I stand back and look at it, I'm not particularly happy with it. It's not that the work that we're doing isn't fabulous and isn't making a difference in the lives of kids, and that it's not making a difference in some of our systems. But it is a rock foundation, and I worry about rock foundations. They're hard to put together. You have to look at them, and you have to figure out how to make that settle against one another so that they fit right. And that isn't smooth, and it isn't seamless, and it has a tendency to not last. These are initiatives, and initiatives are not lasting. We cannot do that and get the outcomes that I'm talking about. We cannot do that and actually close achievement gaps here in the state of Oregon. We need to do something different. We need to look for the cement that is going to be able to be poured on that rock and hold it together in a really substantive way. And then we can build a house on that that is a birth through 20 continuum in the state of Oregon that is targeted and specifically intends, because of the way it's built and because it has a foundation that is built on equity, that causes that P through 20 system to ensure that at the end we do not have achievement gaps of any of the kind that I described. And that needs to be how we go about our work. I'm really pleased that OEIB created and then shared across the state the Oregon Equity Lens. We've adopted it at the state board. It's been adopted by OEIB. It's been adopted by numerous other. I hope every district in the state has either adopted their own equity lens, equity policy, or they've looked at this one and they've adopted it, or they plan to, because what it has forced us to do and caused us, I hope, to joyfully do, is to look at every single decision that we make and everything that we say and everything that we're thinking about doing through a lens of equity. Recently, I was on a radio program and I got talking about equity for some reason. The host asked me the right or the wrong question depending on who you are and how you think. And I said something about equity meaning equitable outcomes. And he surprised me because he said to me, "Don't you really mean equal opportunity?" And I said, "No, I mean equal outcomes." Now, I'm glad I said, "No, I mean equal outcomes," because it's what I meant. But it caused me to stop and think for a minute about something in a really different way. And it's actually something I've pondered a number of times since then. And part of it probably is just, I'm a little dense sometimes. But my question to myself, and the question that I had wished I had asked him at the time was, how can opportunity be equal if it doesn't lead to equal outcome? If it doesn't give you an equal outcome, the original opportunity was not equal. That should be fundamental. If you walk away with nothing else today, if you've never thought of that, please hold that in your heart and your mind. If you don't get an equal outcome, how is it possible that the opportunity was first deemed to be equal? And if we start from that place as a foundation, if we start from that place as an equity lens, and we say we're going to build something with the specific intent that there will be no achievement gap at the end of the day, because every opportunity that is necessary to make sure that we do not have an opportunity gap is built into the system, then we have a system where we will not have achievement gaps in the state of Oregon, and that is the system that we need to build. And you can begin to build that with the rocks in a foundation like these initiatives that I talked about, and they are important and good, and we need to do them. And I'm so proud of the outcomes that we've got underway, and I am so proud of the people at the department and you all for doing the work. But there must be fundamental change that's built into our system to cause this to happen. And I want to talk about a couple of them that we have coming up in the 2015 session. And I thought Karanja was a little bit prophetic when he said, if you're not interested in the political conversation, you can go in the other room, because honest to God, this is a political conversation. And I need you all to hear what I have to say today and be in Salem when these issues come up. Because these issues are going to come up, and if we are not there in force, we will continue to get the same. And we cannot afford to continue to get the same for students in the state of Oregon, or for our state in its long term, or for the morally correct way for us to act as a society. We just cannot do it. And so I challenge you to engage in the political process. It is the place that's going to make a difference on this issue in this year, in 2015 session. We have 3 initiatives right now. There's more than 3. There are about 6 that are very equity-driven, and I want to talk about them, and they'll be just a little bit sort of, wonky. But I want you to dig in on the depth of what I'm talking about. Number 1, we have an initiative coming forward about ELL, English Language Learners, and changing the funding formula for English Language Learners and how it goes out and how it goes. And I can tell you, the pushback on this already is immense. Already is immense. When I talk about this, I immediately get negative feedback. And I am telling you, we are going to need your support if we're going to see this change. And this is something that Nancy Golden, the Chief Education Officer, and I are committed to carrying forward into the 2015 session. That we would move the extra weight for ELLs from 0.5 to 0.6. Doesn't sound like much. 0.1% of the total weight. You get an extra 0.6 in the funding formula. However, it moves $42 million across the entire state. And it moves that $42 million into the hands of providers for ELL students. 42 million more. 84 million over the course of the biennium. That's from scratch, right? $84 million more, and we need to make that move. That it would say that you get that extra money if a student is identified as a level 1 or level 2 on the ELPA assessment for 7 years, regardless of whether or not that student exits ELL status. 7 years. And the reason is we need people to focus intentionally and hard on our ELLs to make sure that they get the English language acquisition that they deserve so that they can move on and be academically successful. And we also need to honor their bilingualism as we do it. But we need to be able to do that in 7 years. And the reason for 7 years is because that when ELLs exit ELL status prior to 9th grade, they have a higher 4-year cohort graduation rate than any other demographic of students. And when they don't, they have one of the lowest. So let's get to work on it and get it moved, and let's do it in 7 years, and let's guarantee districts the 0.6 funding. If a student shows up and is a level 3 or 4, it's 4 years of funding. Let's get it done, but let's also do it in a way that we can offer 2-way immersion programs so that we honor that bilingualism and that we get a bilingual seal on graduation diplomas for students who are bilingual and biliterate, and that we get them college credit for that. The next part of it, and it's a big one, is that districts must spend 90% of the extra weight on the student. I get significant pushback on that. I just think it's the right thing to do. If you get it for it, you ought to spend it on it. And let's get that taken care of. And that if you have a student who has ever been an ELL student in your district that graduates, there's an extra $250 bonus, not because you need money to have a bonus and you're going to put it in your pocket and walk away, but because if you know that there's extra money coming if a student graduates, you're willing to spend the extra money up front to cause them to graduate. Not because you're going to get something after they graduate, but to spend it up front so that you cause them to graduate. And let's get the outcomes that we're after. So let's change our ELL formula and let's put that in state statute. The second one, 9th grade on track. That we would look at any student who historically is an underserved student in the state of Oregon, and that we would offer them summer school either before 9th grade or after 9th grade, ensure that they earn at least a half high school credit, and that they get some support about what it means to be successful and what it takes to be successful in high school. and that they get mentoring support provided by the district or community-based organizations over the course of their freshman year. And if they earn 6 credits, the district gets a bonus of $190. Again, not because they need a bonus, but because they need the money up front to spend to offer these services, summer school, after-school program. And if the student attends at least 90% of the time, there's an additional $50 bonus for a total of $240. That's what it takes to deliver that kind of program. That's all that it takes to deliver that kind of program, and we should be doing it. And the last one, and this really and truly is the pouring of the foundation as far as I'm concerned. And these are fundamental shifts that make a difference and will make a difference in the long-term outcomes for students in the state of Oregon. And it is an age 3 to grade 3 literacy initiative. And it is not a light one. It is intense. We know that if you don't read by the end of 3rd grade, you are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. We need to engage students early on at age 3, and our early childhood providers do work there that's very important. Identify students who are not likely to be readers or who have been underserved historically, and get them into a 5-week summer school program before they show up in kindergarten. And that if they are not successful readers or identified as successful readers as we move forward, that they have summer school before 1st grade, before 2nd grade, before 3rd grade. And if they are not, that they have after-school programs in 1st grade, or in kindergarten, in 1st grade, in 2nd grade, and in 3rd grade. And our goal would be to have 95% of all students be readers by the end of 3rd grade. It is part of the kind of focus that it takes. Lastly, the resource to provide summer school and after-school program flows directly to community-based organizations. Now, when I stand up in front of school district superintendents and I say that we should take this resource and flow it directly to community-based organizations to provide summer school and after-school program, they look at me different. And yet I believe it's the right thing to do. We need to make sure that if we're going to have this resource and really get the outcome that we intend, that we have the right people to engage our students and to engage parents in a different way. Before kindergarten ever starts, how are we going to do that reach out? I want to make sure that we have the right people at the table. Nonprofits and community-based organizations who know how to engage with the community in a different way than school districts do, who now know how to engage with students in a different way than school districts do. Within that summer school component, there is an engagement of parent component. And we need community-based organizations to be our partners in this work. Now, we got to know that the agreement between the community-based organization and the school district's got to be a good one, right? That what that looks like and what the expectations are, how that gets delivered, and what the expected outcome has to be clearly spelled out. In addition, with this initiative, we would place literacy coaches in every district and in every school in the state. And we would ensure that we have robust literacy programs, K through 3, in every school district in the state. In addition to that, we need to make sure that we are tracking student progress and identifying students who need additional support and giving it to them. That is pouring a foundation. It is differentiating how we spend money in the state of Oregon in a different way than we ever have before. And it is saying, how do you build a P through 20 house that stands on a solid foundation and delivers what it is that we hope to achieve? And I said it was going to be a little bit wonky, and it is. It's policy change, it's formula change, and it's thinking change. But if we're going to accomplish what we're here to talk about today, what we all want to put energy into, we need to cause this fundamental change to take place in the way we think about our school system in the state, and it cannot be about an initiative. It has to be about something that is fundamental and sustainable, and that's what we're going to be proposing as we move forward. I think that we find ourselves at a place of opportunity. We have a governor right now, Governor John Kitzhaber, who is very committed to equity, who's very committed to schools. We have Nancy Golden as the Chief Education Officer in the state. Nancy also cares very deeply. we have educators like you all who are willing to listen to me talk about moving money around in different ways so that we can begin to get different kinds of outcomes for students in the state. And I appreciate your giving me the time to talk about that, to be a little bit wonky. We're going to get down to much more specifics when we bring up the equity team from the department and do a little bit of town hall. I very much appreciate that you're all here, your commitment, your hard work and dedication to all the students in the state of Oregon. Thank you.